away down in the valley. The trees, well, they creak and groan and whisper with the northern winds. Say, go on home now, go on home.
Hello and welcome to Tell You What, the podcast, where we talk with young songwriters about the craft of songwriting, the live music experience, and everything. Our guest on this episode is Northern Irish songwriter, musician, and producer Joshua Burnside. I first met up with Joshua at the South by Southwest Music Conference in Austin, Texas last month. I've been to South by a few times, and I've always come away with some great music discoveries from the United Kingdom. There are endless different venues where shows are happening all over Austin that week, but I've always found my way back to a club called Latitude 30, which is taken over that week by UK organizations and renamed the British Music Embassy, and that is where I saw Joshua play. I'd found his music in my pre-trip research, but seeing him perform live really drew me in as a fan. He really gives it his all in his live performance. I chatted with him briefly after his set, and I somehow convinced him to record an episode with us. I do feel the need to properly set the scene for this recorded chat. Joshua and I had first agreed to talk on a Friday, but our signals got crossed, so we reset the date for a few days later. In the meantime, the university I have a rooting interest in became involved in the National Basketball Championship, and I made the last-minute decision to drive to Minnesota to watch the final game with some old pals. I know we will have some international listeners on this episode, so just trust me that this experience was a bit intense. There was, perhaps, some late-night carousing and celebrating, and in order to accommodate the time differential between us, it was morning for me when I met online with Joshua to chat. All this goes to explain that I was, let's say, perhaps a slight bit duller than usual for this episode. Good news for you, dear listeners, is that Joshua's natural wit and charm carried the day, and we ended up with a great discussion. We covered a couple of ideas that I've talked with other guests about, and Joshua offered up some unique and thought-provoking takes on the topics. For example, when we discussed the issue of whether songs are ever really finished, or his thoughts on his progress as a songwriter over time. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. I hope you enjoy this episode and check out some others. If you are a returning listener, I think you will become a Joshua Burnside fan in due course. So let's get to it. Here's our discussion with Joshua Burnside.
Oh, where is my little swallow? Well, I have no golden armor to share. You may pluck out my blue eyes, tear out my tongue, tear out my tongue. Well, I've seen this sagging sky before, and I've sang this sorry song one too many times. One too many times.
Okay, Joshua, welcome to Tell You What, the podcast.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. You are our first international guest.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
This is very exciting. We're transcontinental. You are in Belfast currently. Do I have that right?
That's right. I'm in the glorious East Belfast at the minute in my little studio space, which I rent out. In Northern Ireland.
And that's home to you.
It is, yes, yeah.
Now, you and I met briefly. I'm sure you don't really remember, but I saw you perform at South by Southwest in Austin,
I remember.
Texas. You do remember.
Yeah.
I make a big impression.
Yes.
30 seconds.
To be fair, I remember speaking to you, but I can't remember exactly what you looked like. Were you wearing a hat?
Really, I'm very handsome. Let's
Very
start
handsome.
there.
Okay. Right.
I was wearing a hat.
Okay,
so
I
there you
remember
are.
that much part. Yeah.
But there were a lot of performers, and I've noticed this before at South by, from Great Britain, Ireland. Are there cultural organizations that support artists to make that trip? Did you come on your own, or how does that work? Do you know?
Yeah, so you can apply for funding from a few different organizations. One's called the PRS, which they collect royalties on our behalf. So anytime a song gets played on the radio, they have to pay the artist for that privilege, which is quite good. We've got a very good system in United Kingdom and Ireland for doing that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't claim their royalties, so there's this kind of like pot of money that they just give to up and coming kind of artists to kind of help promote their career. And so that's one of the ways you can kind of if you can get funding from them, they might send you out to South by, which is really great.
Yeah. So that's funny. That's the unclaimed funds.
Yeah, just like people don't even realize maybe that their song has made a bunch of money because some yoga teacher is like playing it in their class or something,
right?
Or it's like being played at a disco or something, and then because it's being played, it's making a few quid, and then people don't claim it. I think that's why it's been explained to me that where their money comes from. So,
well, let me tell you this: my wife and the spiritual advisor to the Tell You What podcast is a yoga teacher.
Okay.
And she has played your music in her yoga class.
Oh wow! Did it make them really sad and bored?
I don't think so.
I never thought of my music as being would be good for yoga. I don't know.
Well, she plays a lot of interesting music, but she definitely it worked for her. So I'm not sure whether the PRS is getting paid by her, though. I'll have to look into that. So
don't know. I don't know how it works in the States, to be honest.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your background. Did you grew up in Belfast?
Yeah, just outside in a town called Cumber, which is sort of just southeast of Belfast, and then I moved I lived in Glasgow for a while, I lived in Manchester for a while, and I've settled back in Belfast the last few years.
So what kind of music were you exposed to growing up, like in your home or elsewhere?
Probably the main things that stand out would be the likes of like Paul Simon and Dylan and
from your parents?
Yeah, from my dad mainly. Fleetwood Mac, things like that there. Mainly American stuff. And then as I got older, I kind of, because we came from sort of Protestant background, we didn't really listen to a lot of Irish traditional music. It wasn't really a thing in our house. Because that was seen as sort of like the nationalist kind of music. So I was never really exposed to that from a young age. And then when I went to university in Belfast, I started listening to more of it and hanging out with people who listened to it a lot. And so I kind of got into it later in life. But
so when did you start to play music?
I think I wrote my first song when I was about 11 or 12. Just like words. Maybe younger, actually. I made up this like fantasy band in my head, and I just wrote these really dumb songs. I had a melody in my head, but I didn't know how to play an instrument yet. And then when I was 12, 13, I started playing in like a little band.
Guitar.
Playing guitar and singing. It was sort of like a punk grunge. It was horrible, but it was good fun.
So did you continue to write music then when you started playing the guitar?
Yeah, I mean, once I started, I just never stopped. And then I think I was never really interested in being a very good guitarist or a very good singer. I just liked writing, like the craft of writing a song and throwing a few chords together.
So the guitar and the voice you saw them as a vehicle to allow you to write the songs?
Yeah, it was definitely they were just tools to get the song out, sort of thing, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about live performance. Did you go to a lot of shows growing up? Are there any maybe that stand out or artists whose performances influenced you from a live show perspective?
Yeah, there's been a few. One band, American group actually. I think they're American. They're not a band anymore. But I saw in Manchester when I was at university called The Books. I don't know if you've ever heard of The Books.
No.
And it's a duo, and it's a guy who plays guitar and a guy who plays cello. And it was one of the best live performances I've ever seen. And they had visuals timed to all the music, and it was all like kind of sound collage and samples, really complex guitar and cello and and singing and stuff, and sort of folktronica thing, and like had a really lasting kind of impression on me.
Yeah.
I got to see Paul Simon for the first time actually recently, and it's sort of his farewell tour as he's
right.
built it in Glasgow, and that was absolutely incredible because he played just all my favorite songs, all the hits, and then lots of songs that you wouldn't normally play live, and like old tunes and some Simon and Garfunkel stuff as well, and it was really amazing.
So sounds like he's been a big influence on you as a songwriter.
Yeah, for sure. I would still listen to him quite a lot. Anytime like I'm kind of stuck, or I've kind of lost inspiration, or I feel like I'm in a rut, I would just stick on one of his records, and then, it would seem, he makes it seem so easy, it makes it seem effortless. So like when you listen to his music and then you go back to your guitar or whatever, it's like things seem simpler. It's like don't try and overcomplicate it. Just just keep it simple and keep it, honest or whatever.
That's interesting because if you read any interviews with him, he works incredibly hard at his process.
Yeah.
He's very meticulous.
Not to say, I do end up banging my head against the wall most of the time with a line or a lyric or a melody, and it can be a very slow process, and you have to nitpick about every little detail, I think. But sometimes you can get caught in like a sort of mind trap of your own creation, because whether you're afraid of what people are going to think of this bit, or whether it's your own self-doubt, or whether it's you're just not feeling it, and then you just get caught in like a loop. And sometimes if you listen to someone else's music, especially someone who's such a gifted songwriter, like it can release you from that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. Have you ever collaborated in your songwriting, or you've done everything by yourself?
I've sort of done most of it by myself. I haven't done a lot of co-writing or anything like that there. My brother, he plays a bit of drums, he writes most of the drum parts, and then other people have come and gone that have played different bits and pieces on the songs, but the core of the songs is mostly just me,
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your process. You have a really varied output. Some of your songs really complicated. You've also released stripped down versions of those songs. Do most of your songs start as straightforward folk songs and then get built up in the studio, or are you kind of hearing that complexity from the outset when you write?
I'm normally sort of somewhere in between that. No, it really depends on the song, actually, because some songs I just planned it to be a 3-chord, nice melody, nice words kind of thing, and then once I started recording it, I felt like it was dull, or it was lacking in some way, and then decided to throw everything else at it in the studio to mash it up and rip it apart and see what we can do to kind of breathe some life into it some way in the studio. And then other songs, I have a very clear picture production wise what I want to do with it and how I want it to sound, so I go in with like this idea, I'm going to put this, that, and there, and then sometimes that doesn't work at all, so those songs become really simple acoustic numbers.
So sometimes they go backwards in that sense.
So I can go either way. I just think once you get recording, you never really, I think it's just trial and error, I think, sort of.
Let's talk about the song Blood Drive.
Mm-hmm.
On the deluxe reissue album you released, you released a demo version, I think you called it, very spare acoustic version.
Yeah.
Still has the urgency of the full version of the song, I think, but which is much more lush and multi-track vocals and other effects. So what was the order of events with that particular song?
That was just like the demo was like what it sounded like when I just written it, and I had no idea what I was going to do production wise. But I knew I wanted it to be simple. I knew I wanted it to be kind of lush vocals.
Right.
But I didn't want to do anything too complicated with it because I like the song kind of the way it is. I just wanted to give it a bit more atmosphere and give it a bit of a lift each verse and each chorus, you know. So there's just like simple piano chords and like in fifths for the chorus just to give it a bit of weight in the chorus. Mm-hmm. And then the last chorus there's like a banjo line comes in and there's a bit of shaker, but I didn't want to. I think like it's you know, it could have done more, I could have done less, but I think it sits just all right with the way it is, you know.
I think it works very well.
Cheers.
I think it's just right. A lot of other people agree, it seems though.
Paper cup and the power cut at the edge of time. There's a silent cry. And they blocked off the roads. Nowhere to go. Say it's a blood drive. Warnings from on high. Sparks in the dead night. Well, I hope your book is right. Blood drive. Thunderous light from church to the bunker. I lost you in the running cry. Blood drive. Pastor alive. St. Peter denied. They're afraid of the needle. Blood drive. Ammunition and tin cans. Red and white armbands. Well, I felt dizzy at the sight.
Recent release, Wear Bluebells in Your Hat, if you're going that way.
Yeah.
From what I can see is a reworking or re-release of your first EP from 2013. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you added some new songs. Can you talk about your decision to return to that work?
Yeah, I think when I released that myself, I didn't really have any money to like put it out there, so and not many people heard it. So now that I'm with this small label in Belfast, Quiet actually decided it might be a good idea to bring it, because we release everything on vinyl, and we didn't have that on vinyl, and we thought it would be a nice kind of thing to do. Lyndon, my manager, suggested putting like bonus tracks and B-sides and all the rest of it on the other side on the flip side of the vinyl.
Okay.
And make some new artwork, and it'd be like a nice new kind of thing to sell at shows and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be a really good idea, because lots of people who kind of came on board and started listening to me because of the Ephrata album then got a chance to. Those of them, many people didn't go backwards, and then
right.
So a lot of people got to hear sort of where that came from, and it was fun kind of doing the new versions. I did like an acoustic version of Desert Wine,
right, and
that was. It's always kind of nice to revisit like really old tunes, and what seems like really old to me now, but it's like 4. What year is it? 2019.
It is
6 years ago. It's hard to keep track.
Math is hard.
Yeah, it was good. It was always fun to revisit old tunes and kind of rework them. And when 6 years might not be that long a time, but you change so much. I think I've changed quite a lot in that time, and I feel like I'm singing them. I feel like I'm covering them more than, like they're not my own songs anymore, and I'm just doing like a cover, which is kind of nice.
So I've talked about this with some other guests. How do you feel about the idea that songs are they ever really finished? Like when you release a song, in your head you think this is done, or in a case like this, 6 years later, you've gone back and redone a song. Mm-hmm. You've kind of already said this, but do you feel like a song is kind of a living thing in that sense, that it never is actually finished?
Yeah, sort of. I think like there's some like recordings that you do that are kind of like the recording, if you know what I mean, and they're sort of like that's
You did it right.
Yeah, and that's sort of like it's almost like a statue that you've carved, and it's just sitting there. But the statue is just a representation of the song. It's not the song itself, if you know what I mean. It's like the song itself is a more kind of ethereal creature on its own that can be taken by someone else or played live a million different ways, re-recorded over and over again. So the song and the recording are two separate things, and I think, and so I think the songs definitely have a life, and
that's a very interesting way of putting it. The song Desert Wine on this release is a longer version than the original. Do I have that right?
Yeah. So there's two versions of the old one. There was one that was quite short, and then I decided to make it longer, so I added on a bit. I added on like a nice sort of bridge in the chorus, extra chorus, because it was only like a minute and a half or something. I can't remember.
Right.
And then so there's two versions up online. I'm not sure which one's which.
Okay. Yeah, because the first one kind of builds up to this chorus and then ends, and it's kind of interesting. It kind of is almost unresolved, and it's kind of interesting in that way. But then I heard the other version that kind of allows that to resolve, I think.
Where I'm going, I won't be confined. Oh, where I'm going, I won't be confined. To the back road, to the desert wine. No, you can't have some, you're just too young. By and by you will come to know, with his eyes set in the kindest soul, the devil sleeps where red tulips grow.
So let's get back to what you're saying about the song being a thing that the recording is one part of. So when you are writing songs, are you thinking about the recording of it, or are you thinking about performing it live, or are you just thinking of it as the song and not considering how it will be received?
It depends on the song. A few of the songs I've been writing recently, I've been thinking about more how I'm going to perform them live with the band that I play with at the minute. We just got a cellist and an extra guitarist that came on board for this tour that we're about to do, and I'm trying to arrange everything so that we can use them like the best ways. I can't speak today. Utilize them in like the most.
I'm about a half step behind you today, so I'm not going to be much help.
So utilize them in the most effective kind of way, because like it's so great having them on board, and they're such great musicians that I want to make the most of them being there.
Right.
So I've been thinking the last couple of songs I wrote in the last week or two. I've been thinking about their parts and how it's going to sound live, and which is kind of fun, because I normally think about when I'm writing a song how the recording's going to sound, but this might be a better way of doing things. We'll see. I'm not sure.
So when I saw you perform live, I really was impressed. You seemed to be very committed, a very committed live performer. You were definitely trying to connect with the audience, and it worked. So how do you approach live performing? What do you think is important to a good live performance?
I think what you're doing on stage is as important as what the sound is, you know. People want to, like, if you're just standing around strumming the guitar, singing, not moving, or I think people don't connect as easily to that. I think people come to see gigs as much as they come to hear them, you know. So I like to kind of rock out a bit and throw myself around and really kind of get really absorbed in the music and absorbed in the other people that I'm playing with on stage, and not like absorbed in a way that excludes the audience, but in a way that, like, you know, I'm kind of bouncing ideas off Connor on the drums or Mason on the bass, and kind of trying to get in the same headspace as them and the audience, and kind of meet somewhere in the middle, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, it worked very well when I saw you.
Cheers.
So you're doing something right.
Cheers.
All right, Joshua, we need to talk about something.
Mm-hmm.
We need to talk about dreams.
Okay. Yeah.
Some of your songs, a lot of them have like dream-like soundscapes, background voices, kind of found sounds, ethereal production, right? And a number of your songs lyrically directly reference dreams, right? Black Dog, Sin, I think, Good Word, maybe.
Yeah.
So can you talk about this? Is the dream state important to your creative process, and how do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine recently said to me, dreams and dancing are the two things that come up a lot, apparently,
in your music.
In my music, dreams and dancing. Yeah. So, I think dreams are. I think I've always been a big fan of the surrealists, like painters from like the early 20th century, and like their kind of way of thinking and way of processing the world and way of creating art was just like really fascinating to me. So I think a little bit of that is kind of rubbed off on me, and I certainly think there is so much going on behind the scenes in your head that, especially if you're writing, as a lyricist, it's such a great resource, of creativity. Yeah, I'm quite interested in kind of subconscious psychology, and I think I write most of my kind of lyrics first thing in the morning when your head's still in that kind of hazy state when you don't really know, like you are now, maybe.
No telling tales on me.
And I'm quite interested in how alcohol and drugs and things, mind altering things, kind of affect how you see the world. And
so, aside from writing early in the morning, do you occasionally try and write under the influence in order to kind of access that unconscious? Is that what you're getting to?
Yeah, but I think I don't normally write, but under the influence. But I do take inspiration from a different perspective. But
okay,
if that makes any sense, like I probably drink far too much, and that's kind of a problem that I deal with in my songs quite a lot. I reference drinking in like every other song. Maybe it's just typical Irish, eh?
Maybe. I wouldn't know. There is a small town in Northern Ireland called Clabby, which is my last name.
Glabby?
Clabby, yes.
Clabby?
So
that's Clabby. Okay, yes.
Yes.
Clabby, I don't know. Do you know where Clabby is, Connor? No.
I think it's very small.
We'll go check it out sometime.
All right.
And
so
report back to you.
Back to the dreams. Let's talk about the song "Drive in Another Time."
Yeah.
I think you do a great job here lyrically of kind of taking us into a dream.
Yeah.
Like you talk about specifically when you're riding in the car with your dad in the dream, and your song comes on the radio, but it's all scratchy, right?
Yeah.
So we all kind of know that frustrating aspect of dreams where things just aren't working. And
yeah.
I think you captured that pretty well there. Can you talk about that song a little bit?
Yeah, I wrote it around the same time as the rest of that EP. One morning after having a series of sort of, I wouldn't call it nightmares, but just unhappy dreams, where you kind of bounce from one scene to the next, not really. You're always, searching for something. Yeah, just one of those really anxious dreams. And, I think probably stems from a place of longing and grief for a sort of childhood that kind of got snatched away from me, So I think there's... Yeah, I've always liked songs that were like a little journey, and you could follow the kind of trail from start to finish. There's no real conclusion to the song, which I always felt like was kind of... It was missing some sort of more well-rounded kind of circular kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that dreams aren't like that normally, so...
The dreams never seem to end, right?
Yeah.
They are frustrating in that way.
And they just kind of end seemingly arbitrarily, so...
Yeah.
So I turn the radio on and they're playing my song, but it's screeching and it's scratching and the words are all wrong. I said, hey, where are we going? It says, going to the beach, my son. But his face starts changing, his eyes turned brown, so I jumped right out and I head on down the road where the sky was spitting and the wind was cold. Well, I came to a bungalow, the front door kicked in, a lonely shirt to the line clinging, the windows were broken, it was dark inside. So I say, hello, 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 is there anyone in there? I'm lost in another time, oh these crazy dreams of mine, I can't take them anymore.
So, do I have this right that you lived in South America for a bit?
Yeah, for just 3 months I was there.
Okay. But did you pick up any musical influences there?
Yeah, for sure. I got to play with a local Colombian group. And they taught me a thing or two, and it was just amazing absorbing that kind of music and those kind of rhythms, which which kind of influenced a few of the songs, the kind of rhythmic patterns I used in the likes of Ephrata.
Right, the song Ephrata,
yeah.
Ephrata particularly, right?
Yeah, and also just like being there was a kind of incredibly inspiring place as well, because I drew a lot. You could draw a lot of parallels between the history of Colombia and the history of Ireland, actually, in kind of weird ways, in their kind of civil unrest throughout the years. I mean, they have the FARC, and we have the RA, as we call them.
Okay.
But yeah, and I was particularly inspired by a guy called Jaime Garzon, that's what 26th Street's all about. He was kind of this really quite interesting intellectual kind of TV personality, comedian, writer, politician, sort of, and he was kind of just basically saying fuck you to all the kind of gangsters running the place, and he ended up getting killed for it, and he was sort of a hero for like the kind of common man.
Okay.
And he was assassinated on 26th Street, I think, in 98 or 97, 98. And yeah, so the song kind of spirals out from there, from his kind of story outwards, and I talk about a few other different interesting people that kind of seemed, particularly brilliant in some way, and then came to like a troubling end, and that's kind of what the song is about, I suppose, is trying to ask the universe why, why does this have to happen? Why do good people have to die in awful ways? Is there a balance of right and wrong in the world, of good and light, or is it just, mayhem?
Her young Rosie wandered off at night. I spit but a nice smile and curtsy, tripped over laces, won $1 at the races through her head. Soul surgery solution grew old in an institution. Came home today, kids begged on the motorway. That's all for sports today. This fucking country, if death is the engine, don't say it on TV. I'll shoot you 5 times on 26th Street, yeah.
You play a few different instruments, correct?
Yeah.
Do you ever use any of them to write, or do you strictly stick to the guitar?
Oh yeah, I use piano to write, and I use banjo to write. I just wrote a song on this air organ thing that I borrowed from another studio. I write on the accordion sometimes, just whatever, whatever's sitting nearest to the sofa, really, or the couch, as you call it. I'll just pick that up, and then if I'm playing away on that, an idea will come to me, and then it kind of turns into a song if I stick at it for long enough,
So you recently released a live version of The Good Word, right? So that song kind of takes up science and religion. It's a story maybe of a professor who, quoting you, giving up all that quantum shit to spread the good word, right?
Yeah.
And I like the line particularly where he says, "I might give up drinking so much."
Yeah.
Can you talk about this song a little bit and your decision to put out that live version?
Yeah, well, we recorded a whole live album in December, which we're bringing out the whole album in May. What is May? Is it May? No, it's April still. Yeah. I don't really know what year it is, what month it is.
It's all right. we'll get there.
I'm sure you're starting to understand why I missed you on Friday. Anyway, so yes, we're bringing out the album next month, and we wanted to like drop a couple of singles from it first. And we chose The Good Word as one of them because it was kind of a fan favorite on that album, even though it wasn't a single. Like people would come up to me and be like, and tell me they really like that song and something about the lyrics that are quite straightforward, but quite, kind of sort of serious, but kind of funny at the same time. And I think people respond to that quite well. Yes. Sometimes, when it's the subject matter is quite serious and dark and all the rest of it, but then there's these little throwaway lines that kind of make you chuckle. It's kind of got this, it gives it a wee bit of a balance. You can kind of handle the kind of nihilistic existential part of the song if there's a few jokes thrown in there.
I think it's a great song.
Cheers.
He said, God, what have I done? And was it all predetermined? All meant to be? If you give me more time, I swear I'll believe. Give up all that quantum shit. Spend all my days spreading the good word, singing your praise. Yes, sir, that's right. Glory, hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah.
Let's finish with this. You talked earlier about 6 years between releasing that first EP and re-releasing it, being kind of a long time in terms of your the way you look at your songwriting. So how do you think you have changed over that time? Are there things you've gotten better at, or do you kind of emphasize things differently than you used to?
There's probably things. I'm probably a stronger musician, and maybe I don't know if I've got any better or if I've just kind of stayed the same. But like, I'm trying different things, which is always important. Trying to go in different directions. But I kind of think like when you start off, this is probably nonsense, but like once you get to like a certain point of like songwriting ability, you just stay like that all your life. And you can try out different genres and different.
That's your personal theory.
No, I don't know. I might just be waffling again, but that's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to me when I hear. Like I feel like all the best get to their best when they're in their early 20s, whatever, and then they kind of just stay like that. And I think I'm the same, maybe.
Yeah.
Not to say that they don't make better albums later on down the line because they tried out a different genre or a different idea or a different kind of thing, but right. I think generally their like songwriting ability, you work out how to do it and then you just do it. And then,
as a trade, kind of.
Yeah. It's like making a table.
Yes.
You know how to do it, and then you just keep making tables over and over and over again. And hope that people keep buying them.
Right. Well, you're making pretty good tables so far. Maybe you should consider a chair next. So.
Okay. I'm gonna do chairs next.
Do chairs.
Okay.
A whole album of chairs would be great. Joshua, this has been a great chat. I really appreciate your taking the time to meet with us.
Yeah.
Do you have plans to maybe come back over to the States and do some shows here?
Yeah, we're planning to come out. We've got a few gigs in October, actually. We haven't announced them yet, so I will update you about that in due course. Yeah. But I think we will be in Chicago. We'll be in New York. Hopefully LA, San Fran, Cisco. I know the people in the US hate it when people call it San Fran.
I'm not sure. I think you're allowed to say it.
Okay.
We'll give you
San Fran
permission.
Okay.
Well, that's great. We as the United States look forward to seeing you here live. But
Cool.
People are already listening to your music here, and I think there's a lot to discover. You're doing great things.
Cheers. Thank you very much for having me.
You may wonder why I sneak at night downstairs to the kitchen. Why the podcast finished somewhat diminished in the morning.
Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Tell You What, the podcast. Big thanks to Joshua Burnside for being so generous with his time, and also, particularly, for carrying the conversation along so well as I struggled a bit to keep up. I really enjoyed our talk, and I look forward to seeing Joshua perform live again later this year here in the U.S. If you enjoyed the podcast, it would be great if you could take a minute and give us a rating or a review on the iTunes machine. That'll help other folks find us and give more exposure to these great young artists. I'm not going to tell you what rating to give, that is up to you, of course, but as a reminder, the maximum rating is 5 stars. 5 stars is the most. An even easier way to help us out is to tell a music-loving friend about us or share your love on the social media. I'm guessing some of you might be users of the social media. So check out Joshua's music. It is eclectic, fascinating, and powerful. And I think more great music is yet to come from Belfast. Thanks again for listening. And until next time, music is the best.
Well, I've written